Hi, welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This is a show all about farmers markets. Whether you're a farmers market manager, a farmer, or a food producer selling at farmers markets, or just a curious farmers market shopper, this is the podcast for you. Our guest this week is Ben Grimes from Dawnbreaker Farms in North Carolina. Dawnbreaker Farms specializes in pasture-raised, non-GMO chickens, forest-raised pigs, Thanksgiving turkeys, and grass-fed lamb. In our interview, Ben shares his innovative marketing techniques for selling meat at the farmers market, tips on retaining customers and increasing sales, and his passion for informing people about the food choices they have. Hi, I'm one of your hosts, Bridget Myers. I've spent years as an on- and off-site farmers market manager, and I've done it all from pulling permits to social media marketing.
And I'm another one of your hosts, Justine Marzoni-Mead, farmers market vendor, hot sauce maker, and event facilitator for the Intense Conference.
And I'm Kat Fields-White, Director of San Diego Markets, still moving my share of barricades at weekly farmers markets, and founder of Intense Business.
This week our guest is farmer Ben Grimes. Ben grew up in Seattle, Washington, playing Nintendo and computer games, a far cry from raising meat in the rural South. It wasn't until he started learning about the ecologically destructive nature of the industrial food system that he became interested in farming. After volunteering and working on farms, Ben started his own in 2013. Now he operates Dawnbreaker Farms in North Carolina, where he grows regeneratively raised meat that can be purchased on the farm, in farmers markets, via delivery, and at a few select retailers. We're super excited to have Ben as a speaker at the 2019 Intense Conference in February. Ben, what inspired you to move from big city Seattle to rural farm life?
Yeah, so it wasn't a clean move from Seattle. I grew up in Seattle, but I haven't lived in Seattle actually since I was like 18.
Oh, okay.
So I kind of popped around a bit. I was in Oregon for a bit. I lived in Minnesota, and then before coming to North Carolina, I was actually in Central Africa in Cameroon.
Wow.
And what were you doing there?
I lived there for 4 years, and for the first 3 years, I taught English. And then the last year, I actually took care of my newborn daughter.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
And then you all made the move back, back to the States and just landed in North Carolina, you said, after Africa?
Yeah, that's right. So I was looking for a place where I could farm, and my ex-wife was looking for a place where she could do a PhD. And so we were looking, really anywhere in the country, but primarily places that had a warmer climate. And so we kind of, UNC Chapel Hill looked really good for her, for what she wanted to do, and it worked well for, farming. So here we are.
Nice. Beautiful. And it's so beautiful out there. I know our family went out there a couple of years ago for my cousin's wedding, and it was just gorgeous. Love it out there. So your farm,
that's very cool.
Yeah, it's really cool out there. Your farm seems to be really busy and sells the meat in a lot of different ways. So you guys sell meat on the farm and delivery to retailers, restaurants, at the market. How did you get started with that, with the farming there? And then how did you end up kind of being in all those different facets? Because we kind of talked to people who have like one or two sales strategies, but it sounds like you're kind of all over. So was that right away, or how did the farming start out and kind of migrate that way for you?
So I think that each of the avenues serves a specific purpose. And has a certain customer base that fills a niche for the financial program of my farm. Right now, the farmers market is like 70 to 80% of my business. I'm hoping that actually next year that drops down significantly.
Why is that?
And that I can do more wholesale. Just to have more, I don't want to be so dependent on one stream of income. For me, the farmers market has been fantastic, and I'm really, really happy about it. I'm gonna keep going, and still use it as a main source of income. But I don't think that it's good to be dependent on one source of income, just because you don't want to build your house on one column. You want to have multiple columns that it can support the weight, so that if one column falls, you have other columns that are supporting your weight. Right now, if the farmers market fell, I would be out of business, effectively. I couldn't support myself on the other streams of income. But the other sources, I've kind of gone in the other directions. like wholesale is primarily for one species of meat, which is ducks. That's a species which works well with wholesale. Um, and then I do, I supply a pork CSA, and that works really well because that's a subscription model. So every month I deliver a box of meat, a box of pork to this one customer, and then they distribute it for me. And then the farmers market makes up the bulk of the rest of my sales. When I price something out and I look at an enterprise, I start backwards. I start at the beginning and I say, how much money does Ben Grimes want to make? Personally, my personal income. And then from there, I have to work backwards and say, what does a farm need to produce in order for me to earn this income? I'm on a smaller land base. I only have 20 acres. So I have a limited amount of production that I can do and still do it, regeneratively the way that I want to do it. And so a lot of the species I'm capped on land. And so I can bring my margin down, like specifically on pork. I could bring my margin down to make it attractive to wholesale. But when I do that, that doesn't fit the holistic context of the money that Ben Grimes needs to make. So I always keep that in mind. For pork, I'm kind of capped on that land base. Plus, there's a lot of competition who are doing it better than I am doing it, and are able to serve that wholesale market in a way that I can't, because of their quantity and then their price. And then for chicken, like there's very few restaurants doing actual local pasture-raised chicken. Like maybe out west they are, but here in North Carolina, there are a very few select restaurants doing it. Because it's just when you can go buy a chicken for $1 a pound wholesale, versus I'm wholesaling you a chicken at $5 a pound, that makes it hard for the chef to make it viable because they need to serve that on a plate, and they're gonna have to probably get $20-$25 a plate in order to make that viable. And in this area, that's something that a customer is not willing to pay for a plate at the restaurant for chicken. But it doesn't cost me too much more money to raise a pound of duck versus a pound of chicken. A little bit more, but not that much. But a chef can flip it onto a restaurant menu and they can command $25-$30 a plate because of the perception in the customer's mind that this is a duck, this is a specialty item. And so it works for me in my holistic context of what I need to earn in order to flip it wholesale, and I still get a fantastic margin wholesale, and the restaurant has demand for it because they can put it on their menu and they can make money.
I love the scientific approach.
Yeah. Yeah.
It works for everybody. It's all around.
Yeah.
I wish more of our farmers actually would start at that space. What do I need to make?
Yeah.
And then work back from there. I feel like so many of them don't do that. In fact, that's the whole kind of focus of the conference that we do, the passion meet profit. It's okay to take what you're passionate about doing and make money at it, but you have to think about it like a business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do. Absolutely. Yeah. You absolutely do. And I think that's one of the failures of not just farmers, but most small business people. We don't approach it like a business. We don't approach it saying with that holistic context of how much money do I need to make. And I think that's something that I'm very passionate about, and I work with a lot of beginning farmers, and that's something that I'm always kind of drilling into people, like start at the beginning.
Absolutely. Well, hearing you talk about that kind of makes sense that farmers markets is a large portion of your revenue, just because I feel like that might be the best kind of bang for your buck when you're selling directly to the consumer, so you can charge a retail price and keep the profit on that. So what's the order? Do you start out at farmers markets and then you kind of moved into wholesale, or was it you just kind of those were working for you? And do you have a lot of repeat customers at the farmers market, so that kind of keeps your business going there? Or can you kind of just talk about the business model at the market?
Yeah, I started at the farmers market from the beginning. I've always been at a farmers market. And then, on the side, I was always trying to dive into other markets. And, for me, I'm the kind of person, I'm going to knock on a door, and if it opens, I'm going to go through it. And if it doesn't open, I'm going to go through another door. And so I was knocking on that wholesale door and it didn't open. I was knocking on the buying club door and it didn't open, but the farmer's market door kept opening and that business kept growing and growing. And so I said, this is the direction I need to go in. And so I just kind of kept going in it. And it wasn't until this last year, the pork CSA, that opened up. That was a really unique, great situation. And then it was this year with the ducks that the wholesale door opened up.
Are those connections that you made at the farmer's market, or were you working kind of on the side? Because the pork CSI, you said you bring the pork to one person and they do the distribution for you?
Yeah, so the actually it was at the farmer's market. It was funny. It was at a Wednesday farmer's market, and I don't usually do midweek farmer's market. But this woman was like, "Hey, you should contact this woman, Farm to Fork Meat Riot. They're really great." Da 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 da. And so later that week, or maybe that day even, I called that I called that business. It's actually a nonprofit. I called her. And I said, hey, this is what I do. Are you interested in, coordinating with me? And, just kind of that opened up the door to me being her main pork supplier.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really amazing. Some of the people that you meet at the farmer's market, they may not be a direct customer, but you end up making connections through them. And
oh yeah.
Or they're like, hey, I have this cousin who would love this, and then that cousin all of a sudden is your best customer. It's really, even if I always try to remind myself that when we're having a tough day at the market, where I'm like, we're gonna meet somebody that's this is gonna lead us somewhere, even if it's not money right here in our pocket. You end up making some sort of connection that will lead to something.
Yeah, the community aspect of it. Yeah,
there's always a network business.
As long as you're paying attention, as long as you're one of those vendors or farmers that's paying attention to what's going on around you.
And if you're staring at your phone, you won't get that open door.
Yeah,
that's right.
So Ben, I'm wondering, what are your customers like at the farmer's market? Do you have a lot of repeat serial customers that come see you every single Saturday, or how have you built up your fan base at your farmers markets?
Yeah, I think that, you guys were just talking about how, you meet a customer and you don't know how it's going to turn out. I think that with meat specifically, someone's going to come and they may just buy a pack of sausage the first time they talk to you. But then, that's kind of they're dipping their toe in the water. And then they keep coming back, and they'll buy more and more and more, and soon you're their regular meat supplier. I think that compared to other farming, like, if you're growing produce, it's an organic carrot, so what? I don't have any questions about it. There are no ethical questions about eating this organic carrot. But, like, you really have to have trust when it comes to your meat farm. And so that's something that over time I've built in that trust and develop that customer base, starting off, one person buying a pack of sausage, and then they're going to buy, $50, $75 worth of pork or chicken or both or every single week. Or it could be that they're starting to buy, a whole or a half hog or a bulk chicken program. So these kind of customers, it's important to retain your customers so that they do become more loyal customers that do buy larger amounts. But then you also have to attract the new customers so that you can have that flow, because, you are going to lose a fair amount of customers every year because just, for whatever reason, people move or, their eating habits change or, whatever. So you do have to kind of have that revolving door to allow people to come in, but then retain the new people and just develop those relationships. And I think for me, like my main marketing approach is I really want to listen to people, hear where they're coming from, why they are attracted to my product, because they're coming for different reasons. Sometimes it's health, sometimes animal welfare, sometimes it's environmental. So there's so many different reasons that people are coming to me. And so I want to know why they're coming from me and then be able to, bring that out and listen to them and really understand with them and connect with them on that level. And I think then once people are heard and understood, then they're going to want to come back and continue shopping from you because they believe that you're filling that that niche that they need to feel good about, their shopping experiences. And it's not just it's I think when I said that, it came off as like I'm trying to take advantage of the situation, but it's also like, this is personally how I want to connect with them because I believe my product too, and I want to resonate on that mutual level.
Yeah, I think that's really important. My product, our hot sauce, is similar in this way, where some people buy it because they are trying to reduce the sodium levels in their diet, and our hot sauce doesn't have that much salt in it, or they're trying to cook more at home, and so they think having condiments in the refrigerator will help them do that. Or some people are like, your logo's cute, I just want to buy it. So
many things motivate people.
And I think that it's really helpful to listen to your, obviously you should be listening to your customers, but it helps you then learn how to talk about it, because you have these kind of talking points of, sometimes it's hard to realize why your own product is great. It's nice to hear from your customers and have them tell you, and then how to communicate it better to future customers.
Yep,
so I think that's really wise.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So when you're talking about the ethical aspects of it, I know you're animal welfare certified. Is there a lot of additional cost associated with that certification?
No, there's no additional cost associated.
Oh, really?
With that
nice. Okay, so it's unlike organic certification for produce growers, where it really, there's a lot of overhead, there's a lot of different things you have to do to the land that are expensive to maintain that certification. That's not an issue with the certifications that you have on your meat?
No, AWA, Animal Welfare Approved, is a real breeze, I have to say. Like,
that's great.
There are certain criteria that you have to practice, and so I only have my lamb actually AWA certified. My other species, turkey, any of my poultry and pork are not AWA certified.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Because I don't follow their criteria.
I see.
And I don't believe that their criteria is actually fit. But for lamb, it fits. My practice and their practice is fit, and it's a real breeze. Like, they come out, and they look at your farm, they look at your animals, and they send you the paperwork. It's really, really easy. There's no cost associated with it. There's a little bit of paperwork, but it was not a burden at all.
Yeah. And so you sound like you have your own, pretty firm ethos about how you raise animals and things. Is that why you apply for that certification, or do you think it actually has an effect on your sales? Do you think it gives your customers a comfort level?
I don't think it has an effect on my sales. I think that me being there and being able to talk to them face to face and having that connection is the real important factor.
Yeah, we're always we have a certain group of customers that'll come to the market and say, "Oh, I only want to talk to a farmer who's certified organic." And from our view, it's so much more important to buy from the farmer that and you can talk to them about what they're doing and what their growing methods are, because especially the way this organic certification for vegetables has evolved, you can do things that are way better for vegetables than what that program calls for, but you need to know your farmer to figure out if that's what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's absolutely right. And I don't expect everybody to dive into and really want to get that deep with their farmer. Most people don't. They just want to go and they just want to buy some sausage, or they just want to buy a head of lettuce, and they don't really want to think that much about it. So in that case, for me, like, signage is really important. So I have big signs that say pasture-raised, local, sustainable, because I think those are the talking points. That's what people want to know. And so, if they want to know more, like, I'm there, I can talk to them about it. But I think most people are just happy knowing that I say these things and that resonates with them.
That's good.
Yeah, I do think for a lot of shoppers, the farmer's market is kind of a vetting process for them. They think like, oh, well, it's at the farmer's market. So that, they assume that the fact that they're there, they don't have to worry as much.
True.
So I could see how that signage and kind of guiding people through that terrain helps as well.
Yep.
Do you So one of the difficulties that meat vendors have is that people want to be able to see your product. They want to be able to taste your product, but just because, the nature of it, it's frozen or you have to have it in coolers. How have you figured out a way for your shoppers to see or interact with your product while also keeping it safe while you're at the market?
Yeah, that's something that I've struggled with from the beginning.
Every meat vendor does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Every meat vendor does, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I started off just like everybody else, and I had a big cooler full of everything, right? You got sausage in there, you got pork chops, you got chicken feet. There's it's like a jumble of everything. And the customer's like, "Hey, can I get a pack of pork chops?" And you're like, "Sure." And 5 minutes later, you merge with the pork chop victorious.
Victorious. Your hand is frozen.
Yeah, and the customer's like bored and probably walked off by that point, right? And they're like, "I'm never coming back to this guy." So, I started off that way just like everybody else. And I think what I've tried to do, and I landed on something last spring, and then I tweaked it to the point where it's at now, is I use small coolers. I think they're 28 quart coolers. And I put only 1 or 2 products in there. So like I have 1 cooler for drumsticks and thighs. I have 1 cooler for bone-in breasts and boneless breasts, and it's separated side by side. And then I have a colorful, a sign with a neon chalk marker on it saying what it is and its price. And then, people can open it up, and it's not a big jumble of everything. It's very it's very understandable. Like you can open it up and look and say, "Oh, drumsticks are here and thighs are here."
Yeah. It seems a little bit more like when you're at the butcher and they have everything kind of organized by type.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's exactly right. So that's what I'm trying to do. And so it's laid out. So I have 1 side for pork, 1 side for chicken. And when I have lamb, I put 1 side out for lamb. And then I just have 1 cooler for duck because it's only whole ducks. But yeah, that's the kind of vision. And then what I do, because your popular items, you need to refill them. So what I do is I have a big cooler in my truck full of, to be able to refill the small coolers as the day goes on. And so I think that's something that's approachable and it's self-serve. I don't need to, if someone wants to look at a pack of pork chops, I don't need to go and grab it. They can look at it themselves, or I can help them as well if they need help, because it is a little different sometimes. Like you do have to go and open the cooler, and I have an ice pack, so you have to lift up the ice pack. But it is, I think, the compromise between keeping your product cold and frozen, but having it on display.
Mm-hmm.
The best one of the best ones I've seen is I was at Pepper Place not too long ago in Birmingham, Alabama, and there is a guy there that uses the kind of little reach-in coolers that you would use for popsicles in a convenience store, the little round coolers. So they've got a glass lid on them on the top.
Yep.
And then what he's done is painted the outside of those with chalkboard paint. And so he can list all his meat and cross it off
really
as he runs
smart.
out of individual things and stuff.
You can
It's
see
really
it.
cute. But it is, he must have a significant sized truck to fit those coolers in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
These two.
I think that's because I've actually, when I started off, I looked at one of those too, and I think that you're right. Like the hard part is just moving it around,
Right.
and then 2, it's still a jumble. Like
Yeah.
there's a guy locally who has one of those, and it's a jumble.
Oh, but he's still a mess. This guy has like little grid inserts, as though you were separating your Ben and Jerry's from your popsicles.
Yeah.
Actually, in Forrest Pritchard's book, Gaining Ground, he has a really funny story.
does
The
have a funny
first day
story.
that he went to the farmer's market, and somebody asked for, I don't know, it was something somewhat obscure that he didn't think he was going to sell. And it was probably like chicken feet or something. And it was at the very bottom of this huge cooler. And so he has this really funny story of digging through it and being all sweaty and finally pulling out the 1 pound of whatever they bought. So it sounds like it's a struggle, but you've cracked the code somewhat.
Good job.
Yeah, but I think another important part is because meat doesn't stick out like a tomato does. Like you put that tomato on the table and that's all you need, right? But I put my coolers on the table. I'm like, that's not going to attract attention. People are going to walk right by that. So I put up I have a big banner. So canopy, standard canopy, 10 by 10. I have a canopy. I have a banner, which I have 3 banners. 2 of them are 2 foot, 2 foot tall, and then 9.5 feet wide. So like it's just enough for me to strap a bungee cord on either side and string it across. And those things says Dawnbreaker Farms, and then in big letters says Meat Market. Local, sustainable, pasture raised. Big letters. You can see that thing from anywhere.
Yeah.
Good job.
And then there's another one on the front of the canopy too. So like it stands out. So you're walking, I don't know, farmer's market, one aisle is probably 80 feet, 100 feet. You're walking, you take that corner and it stands out, because most farmers and most small business people don't think about marketing. And so no one else has a sign, right? Like you go to the farmer's market and I look and I'm like, y'all are wasting your real estate. You
Look at all that space back there.
Yeah.
Or they'll have a sign on their table, and the sign on your table sounds like it would work, because it's like, oh, people are going to be standing at my table so they can see my sign, but they forget about the people walking.
Right. So their sign is all in front of legs.
Or somebody
Hidden by
stands
legs.
in front of,
Someone stands in front of your sign. Yeah.
Yeah. That is another struggle of selling meat, is like, it's not, I mean, I'm mostly a vegetarian, but it's not that attractive when it's uncooked. Like, you can see a plate of ribs and be like, yum, that looks good. But if you just like are seeing uncooked meat, it's not as pretty as like a beautiful head of kale or something.
It's not pretty. It doesn't get you excited like a tomato does. Like, you look at that tomato, you're like, oh man, that's a great looking tomato.
Yeah.
You look
you can
at a
eat it
pack
right
of sausage, you're like, that's not really that exciting.
It'll be good later.
Do you offer samples at the farmer's market? Do people ever ask you to, I'm sure they ask you for samples, because everybody who doesn't love, a free sample, but have you thought about that? Why or why not samples work for you at the farmer's market?
I don't do samples, just because I've never done it and it seems like a lot of work and I've never needed to.
And I think a lot of the meat guys, it's also a whole different level of permitting.
Yeah.
Because you got to cook meat. It's not like taking a tomato and you do that under your ag cert. If you're offering a meat sample, you've got to get most places, depending on the state, you've got to get a separate permit from the health department on top of your ag permit, and you've got to use a whole different set of criteria.
Mm-hmm. See, now that's interesting.
So effective,
because
though.
North Carolina, I don't have that.
Oh, really? Oh, nice. Yeah.
I can give you food all day long. I can't charge you for it.
We should go there.
Yeah, I can't. Oh, you can't sell it cooked.
I can't sell, but if you want to, if I
samples.
want to do a sample and give it to you, that's your choice.
Oh, nice.
For some reason, the government thinks that if you give money, then you're violating some kind of.
We were just talking about
Money
this.
clearly changes the effect of food on your body.
People get sick if they paid money for it.
Yeah. But if they're taking it without money, then they're free to do it. I don't understand why that is an ethical, code thing. But it's for me. It's not I don't have to do permits or anything. It's just another thing to do, and I've never done it, and I've considered it. And I think early on it was just like, that's too much work to do, and now it's just like it's not.
No, you don't need to.
Yeah, I don't. We have a really successful meat rancher at our markets, and they don't ever sample.
But they used to sample. When they first started, we're talking about Valley Ranch. Yeah, when they first started, Dave was out there with his charcoal briquettes every week, grilling tri-tip and cutting off pieces of it.
Yeah,
I imagine that gets very expensive too.
Yeah, because the meat's
that's
not
an expensive
cheap.
thing to sample.
Yeah, and it takes up your time, so you're cooking rather than talking about your product and selling, and so just
good.
Yeah, I mean,
trade-off.
There is a guy probably 5 or 6 stalls down from me, and he does samples of his beef, and I will say that smells amazing, and it attracts me.
Yeah.
So I know that, I know it attracts other people too. So I mean, it probably works, and you'd probably see an uptick in your customers. I mean, I I've stopped giving away samples wholesale. Like chefs are like, "Oh, bring me a sample," and I'm like, "No."
Oh, really? You don't sample even once for a chef. Do you, what do you do? You tell them you sell it to them?
Because basically, that is, they're basically just saying, "Bring me a sample so you get out of my hair."
Gotcha. I see what you mean.
I've never brought a chef a sample who has then turned around and bought something from me.
Oh, interesting. Huh.
So, I mean, it's. Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not going to give you product so that you can tell me no. Like, you're just telling me no, but you're being too polite to tell me no.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the case necessarily at the farmer's market. But it's just a route that I don't want to go down.
Gotcha.
Not to say that I won't ever, but it's not something that's enticing me to do.
Yeah, and if it's working for you not to do that, then I would, cooking is a whole other thing, so, yeah.
On your website, you have a lot of information about your farming practices and things. Do you also convey a lot of that information at the market, or are you more just talking about, or do you tell to people about how to cook? I've got a farmer friend that's raising lambs now, and she's saying herself cooking this grass-fed lamb is different than cooking lamb that she's ever bought from anybody else, and so she's having to figure out techniques to cook it. She said she could see how if she sold it, and somebody didn't know how to deal with a grass-fed animal, that they wouldn't like it. They wouldn't come back and buy more. So she's putting a lot into trying to teach people cooking techniques so that they make the best of the product. Do you do much conversation with your customers about how to best cook what you raise?
Yeah, I do. I think that, again, that's something where I start where they're at. Like, I think I start and say, okay, well, like, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to... are you trying to serve a lot of people? Do you want to do something quick, complicated? Are you trying to roast, barbecue it? Like, what are you trying to do? And I start there. And then, I'm going to give them cooking tips depending on what they're doing. And a lot of times, like, let's say there's like, oh, I'm going to do this great Indian curry sauce and it's going to be braise these chicken breasts. And I'm like, don't braise the chicken breast. Get some drumsticks.
Yeah,
that's a braising meat, or at least thighs. But so like there's that tip. So I think start there. Like, what are you trying to accomplish? How are you going to cook this? And sometimes people come in and they say, I have no clue what I'm going to do. What should I do?
That would be me.
Take these drumsticks and braise them.
And then it's like, so I think, people like that, it's like, well, you're trying to think again, like, do you want to do something quick? What kind of a cook are you? Because meat's one of those things where you can either be really lazy and just do it quickly. You can fry up some sausage and you're done in 10 minutes. You can throw something in a crock pot, or you can get a little more complicated and roast or braise or grill. And so, you really got to know, where are people at and what are they trying to do? If they're trying to just, throw some sausage on the grill, then you probably shouldn't sell them on a lamb shank. But if they're trying to do something, if they're trying to serve, let's say, a big group of people, and they're trying to, do a one-pot meal, like, don't steer them towards sausage. Then you got to think about the different cuts of the animal. And so here's where you got to know your animal butchery and what cuts are good for different dishes. So you got to know what muscles are going to cook differently, which muscles are going to seize up if you cook them too fast, which muscles are going to have that collagen which breaks down with slow cooking. You just got to kind of take that knowledge which you have, that because you are a meat farmer and this is your business, and you can kind of steer the customer in the right direction. So you're starting with what they want and helping them make the right decision to reach their needs.
Yeah, I think that's such wonderful advice for all farmers market vendors too. I experience this a lot when I'm at the market. Is people say, "Okay, well, what do I do with it?" And I'm just like, "It's hot sauce. Put it on something." And not to be judgmental, but I'm often wowed by how little people's cooking knowledge is, and I think it's just great as a vendor.
Are you talking about me?
You don't surprise me anymore. It's not good.
All I'm grateful for people like you.
But yeah, people do need to be guided. And again, I think that they go to the market because they trust that the people selling there are experts.
Sure.
And so I think that, if all vendors took a little bit more time to give people suggestions, they'd see a lot more returning customers, because I think for some people, they probably, if you didn't give them ideas, they might go home and braise those chicken breasts, and then they might not come back because they might not like it.
Yeah,
but if, since you gave them a recipe or gave them some information, their meal probably tasted a lot better, and they're like, dang, that Ben guy knows what he's talking about. I'm going to keep buying from him. Yeah. And so I think that's something that a lot of vendors can do, is teach the people how to do it, and once they know, they'll realize how amazing your product is. Yeah. If they're misusing it, then they're not going to keep coming back.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're spot on there.
Well, yeah, sounds like you have a lot of great things going on, and I think we could talk to you for a long time about all your doors that you've walked to, but we're kind of wrap it up a little bit right now, but we are going to do our question of the week.
Awesome.
So yes, as we always wrap up our podcasts. So this week, since we're kind of heading into the holiday season, we're just kind of going to go around, and question is, what will be at the center of your table this holiday season? So maybe Justine, we'll start with you and kind of go around, and we'll give you a minute to think about it then.
Okay, so I've mentioned this before. I'm mostly a vegetarian, but on Thanksgiving, I love to eat turkey.
Oh, you do?
And my mom cooks a really good turkey.
I didn't know that about you, Justine.
I love a good turkey on Thanksgiving. But apparently, my family made this decision without consulting me. My dad has lobbied hard this year for a honey baked ham.
So you can't even get your turkey.
So I think they're going to cook, like my mom's going to make chicken, which just really doesn't scratch the itch in the same way that turkey does. And honey baked ham isn't my thing. So I'll probably make some like hippie garbanzo bean thing for me and Dave and the other vegetarians.
You don't do a tofurkey?
No. Tofu is a fun once in a while, but I'm just like not into mock meat stuff a whole lot. But
yeah.
So honey baked ham is unfortunately my answer this year.
Wow. It's okay. It's still good. Well, our family, Kat and I might have the same answer, but we have Thanksgiving a few weeks early in our family, on my mom's side of the family, so that all of the family can get together and we don't have to be at our in-laws, or our kids aren't at our exes, that kind of thing. So we have faux Thanksgiving a couple weeks before real Thanksgiving. We've been doing it for 20 years. And we always have a turducken.
Whoa.
We do.
Which is a turkey stuffed with a duck, stuffed with a chicken. I don't know if you've done this, Ben, at your...
I've never done this, no.
It started out as kind of like a joke, but then my grandma got it. And now we have it all the time, and it's fun. It's good.
I tried to skip it last year, and there's an uproar. There was an uprising.
Like, you must eat
we must have turducken.
You have to eat it. So we always have that for Thanksgiving, and it's a nice tradition. I'm not a huge, meat as the center, I should take that back, actually. I'm not a big, turkey person, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm not a big...
I do have a big
meat.
honey baked ham contingent in my family as well.
Oh, really?
So we have both. Mm-hmm. And actually, I would have said turducken, but since you already said that, because turducken is oftentimes put together by people who are not the actual farmer, because the farmers laugh. They think it's
there's no local
idea.
turducken.
Yeah, there's no local turducken.
It's a good value added.
Yeah, you could do it.
Though. Yeah, so I could probably find a farmer that I could tuck into it. But what I do instead is we get a not quite as big turducken, and then we also get a really good, fresh, right off the farm turkey. But it's a little bit tricky because our farmers, of course, are growing turkeys with the idea that they'll be at the perfect size right before Thanksgiving. And as Bridget mentioned, we do this faux Thanksgiving thing a few weeks earlier than that, so it's always really hard to talk one of our farmers into, let's take him out.
They're
they're not ready.
It's all right. Yeah. They're used to me now, so they plan for me. So it'll be turkey. How about you, Ben? What are you going to be eating this season?
So I have a little bit of an embarrassing confession to make.
Are you a vegan?
No, I'm not. No, but so, I raise turkeys, and it's a, really important part of my business. I love them. I like eating turkey. But every year for Thanksgiving, I go to my family in New York, and they do not want to eat my turkey.
Oh, they want a butterball?
No, well, I think that they're like, it's like, oh, we knew Ben, he was a baby, like he can't possibly be doing anything good. And
oh
two,
man,
like,
holidays, all the
like,
triggers.
they're like, are there gonna be feathers on it?
Oh God.
What?
So I think they're
Do
a
they
little
know where
weirded
food
out by
comes
it.
from?
They're a little weirded out like by like a local farm raising their turkey.
How strange.
then-
This is a strange turn of
And then
events
also
here.
there is a coordination. Like I'm coming up, Wednesday or Thursday morning of Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
and that's a little bit late to bring a turkey. So my Thanksgiving,
Especially a live one that still has feathers. It's obviously what you'd be delivering.
It's your
loading up
flight
my truck.
companion. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And butchering in my grandparents' backyard. Like that.
Why not?
No, but so at the center of my Thanksgiving table will be a grocery store pre-prepared Thanksgiving meal.
No. No, we have to edit this out.
No, this is not the only farmer that tells me these things.
Oh gosh.
So
Oh
sad.
my gosh.
So sad.
That is sad.
Luckily, you eat so well during the rest of the year.
Yeah,
that's
probably.
right.
It's
It cancels
it's
it out.
a fun vacation.
It cancels it out.
And but family's important.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's
I
right.
wouldn't give up my family Thanksgiving to eat one of my birds.
There
It's
you
not,
go. There you go.
the family get together, I think, is more important than what's actually at the center of the table.
It took me a
Most
while to
definitely.
get there because I was like such a foodie, and I was just about, this food has to be perfect. And then I finally realized that probably 80% of my family really doesn't care.
Yeah.
And so it's like, let them eat what they want.
I'll keep
just
that
wanna
in mind
say-
when I'm
Yeah.
staring that honey baked ham in the eye.
Right? It's about the
about
family. It's about
For my
meeting
dad.
people where they are.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? All gets back to that.
Oh man. That
Are you
was a
going to start
good
raising
answer.
any other kind of animals, Ben?
Yeah, I'm gonna stop doing lamb, and I plan to get into beef.
Oh, so you're going bigger. See, I'm promoting
Yeah.
small proteins. I was going to suggest rabbits and maybe snails, but beef.
Down to
huh?
crickets.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, there is a person doing rabbits locally, and she was encouraging me to do it, but I don't want to get into that. If you think about the three meats that people eat in America,
In America.
it's pork, chicken, and beef.
Yeah.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
America.
In America.
Those are, and so like, that's the, those are the home run species if you're a meat farmer. And lamb hasn't really worked out for multiple reasons. And even when I have it, it doesn't really sell that well. But I know I could crush it if I sold beef.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
you
that's
have
true.
to, just business wise.
Again, meet people where they are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. This is
Meet
America.
them where they are.
Yeah. Meet them where you are.
You know,
It's a good tagline.
I like that.
Meet them where they are.
All right. Well, we will meet you at the Intense Conference.
Yes.
That's right. We'll see you in
like it.
February.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Thank you so
Thanks
much
so
for taking the
much.
time
Very
to
good.
talk, Ben. It was great having you on our show.
Thanks.
Awesome.
See you soon.
Likewise. Very good talking to you guys.
All
right.
Okay.
Bye.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening along. Please leave us a review on iTunes and tell us how you liked today's episode. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss our next episode. And if you want more farmers market tips, you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter at intensebusiness.com and follow us on Instagram at intensebusiness. That's INTENTS business. Ben will be joining us at the Intense Conference to talk about the success he's found in selling ethically raised meats at farmers markets. The 2019 Intense Conference will be held in San Diego, February 24th through the 26th. Ben will be there. Get your tickets now.
This podcast is produced by Intense Business, where passion meets profit. Today's episode was recorded and edited by Justine Marzoni Mead. Original music by David Mead. Special thanks to our guest Ben Grimes and San Diego Markets.